When the Bulls got together in Nashville to start their first remote training camp since 1985, most saw it as a good thing, including myself, and I do still think it was a good thing to do that, to get the guys to bond, openly communicate, and build trust with one another. And throughout the training camp and into the preseason, the talk and focus was about having honest conversations, hard conversations, and holding the players accountable for their play. And wouldn't you know it, the Bulls had a players-only meeting after just the first game of the season. Feel like this has to be a record to have one that quickly in the year for any team. And to be honest, and I know I'm probably blanking, but I feel like the Bulls haven't had a players-only meeting since the days of Jim Boylan, when they were rebelling to practice after a back-to-back, I believe it was, and they had a really, really bad loss against the Boston Celtics. They did have that blow-up at halftime against the Timberwolves last season, and then proceeded to give up 150 points in regulation, but that wasn't a players-only meeting. And what I will say is that, okay, holding each other accountable, having those hard conversations is good to have at the start of the season, getting that out of the way, out of the gate. At the end of the day, though, this isn't a good look for a team early on, and I want to talk about it further. Also, a big shout out to the sponsor of today's video, So Rare, but more on that in a little bit. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I said it in last night's post-game video. I tweeted about it last night as well. In my view, there were actually things that I liked seeing from last night's game. The Bulls were moving the ball fairly well. They generated a lot of open looks, a lot of threes, and they played faster with less isolation. Now, they did lose their way here and there a bit and reverted back to ISO ball, and the offense got stagnant at times in the second half, but for the most part, the offense ran better. They just couldn't knock down their shots to save their life, which is bad, like very bad. You can't shoot below 30% from three on over 40 attempts per game. You're never going to win a game that way. But at the same time, the Bulls aren't going to shoot that bad that often, and their opponent isn't going to shoot near 50% from three every night. Just statistically not possible to have your opponent always shooting 50% on you, even if they are wide open. That said, the defense has to be better. I get that the Bulls aren't going to be able to be a top 5 defensive team like they were last season. If they want to be a better offensive team, some defense needs to be sacrificed. But you cannot leave that many wide open threes, which according to Kevin Anderson of NBC Sports Chicago, the Bulls gave up 30 wide open threes. Wide open meaning the defender was 6+ feet out away from the shot. 30 wide open threes. That is awful. That cannot happen. Otherwise, we're in for a very long season. But look, if the Bulls were hitting their threes last night, say even at 40% compared to 28% that they shot, we're not having this conversation, and the Bulls likely don't have to revert back to their bad habits, which lead to a team meeting after the first game of the year. But here we are. You saw the Bulls sliding back to their old tricks when adversity started hitting them, and to me, that's the bigger problem. But before we discuss that, let's hear from our sponsor, So Rare, which I am super excited to tell you guys about their platform, especially considering it is free to join. It is super fun, and you get to win prizes, collect digital cards and assets in the form of NFTs. Unlike most fantasy sports apps, they are different in that it's actually a fantasy gaming marketplace. There is no gambling or betting of any kind. The site enables you to play where users own their players forever. Think of it like you're a GM creating your own dynasty, and you're competing weekly in fantasy competitions for great prizes. Users are owners or general managers of their team, making trades, buying and selling players, all that good stuff. And unlike other gaming sites or betting platforms, it doesn't cost you anything to play. You can start for free. I've created my own private league where you can compete and play against each other for prizes and offers, so check it out if you're interested. Join my private league. Link is in the description. We got some great people in there, and thanks again to So Rare for sponsoring this video. So, like I said, the biggest concern to me, more than the way the offense flowed, more than the piss-poor defense, because that can be corrected, but it was the fact that the mental toughness still is not there from the Bulls. The guys said in the locker room to the media after the game that they didn't respond well when the Thunder went on their run towards the end of the third quarter. Vucevic got in a heated exchange with Billy Donovan after he wasn't seeing as many touches and a mental lapse on his part on defense. You could tell the players were visibly frustrated throughout this one, but they weren't doing anything about it. The energy, the speed of play went out the window because they were getting beat on the other end with the Thunder knocking down everything that they threw up. Don't get me wrong, that is debilitating. Like when you see the opposing team just hitting every shot, you think, Jesus, are they ever going to miss? And it's hard to get that momentum back. But the Bulls have to be able to shake those types of things off. Keep up the energy, keep up the effort, and not hang their heads down low when the game isn't going their way. This is what bothers me more than anything, and something we've talked about ad nauseum throughout last season. Don't quit, stop complaining, stop trying to take over the game and make stupid decisions because you're seeing the other team gain the momentum. That is never going to turn out well. And that's what the Bulls did last night. They went back to what we saw last season. Guys playing for themselves, trying to force shots, not getting back on D, pointing fingers at each other. And the thing is, opposing teams pick up on that frustration and they take advantage of it, which is exactly what the Thunder did last night. So while I was encouraged by what I saw on offense in terms of the way threes were generated and an overall faster pace on that end of the floor, and if the Bulls just knock down their shots, it's a different conversation. But the fact of the matter is, these kind of poor shooting nights, they're going to happen. Or even just poor shooting stretches that lead to the opposing team going on a 10-0 run. They have to respond better to that. Like, how many times are we going to hear the same thing? We've got to respond better to adversity. We've got to hold each other accountable. We've got to be better at not playing a stagnant style of offense. We've got to play for each other. At some point, you have to look in the mirror and say, we need to actually put these words into action. And I know Billy Donovan, even some of the players, are trying to put a positive spin on this, saying that these types of hard conversations are good. Having these conversations early on in the season before it's too late, okay, sure. Billy Donovan said last season these guys would have just been quiet and not gotten on each other for a loss like this. I mean, okay, but at the same time, it's not a good look when it already looks like you're losing the locker room after game 1 of the season. The players had a players-only meeting where they didn't want you in the room. They needed more time when you tried to come back in. To me, that says a good amount of how they're responding to you as a coach this early on in the year. So look, I'm going to try not to blow this out of proportion because it is just one game of the season. And as I said last night, I actually think there were positive things to take away from this game. And there were changes in the offense that we didn't see last year. But yeah, never a good sign when you're having a players-only meeting after the first game of the season and the guys are already visibly frustrated with each other and the coaching staff. So much for continuity, right? Funny how the front office refuses to use that term anymore and they're starting to go with, cohesion? Anyway, let me know what you guys think of the Bulls needing to hold a players-only meeting after game 1 of the year. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.